So as the fight's already been signed now, and it's planned to happen, obviously Terrence Crawford is going to fight Errol Spence. And one thing I was thinking about is, in terms of this fight, I've been thinking stylistically, the way both of them match up with each other. This is quite an unusual fight in the sense that usually when you've got someone who's a master boxer, they usually go up against a fighter who's a skilled, maybe a pressure fighter. And if you see that happening, usually the pressure fighter is the fighter that has the punching power, while the master boxer, the person that's the most skilled fighter, the outboxer, the slick fighter, is usually the one that doesn't have power. And in this sense, if we're looking at this dynamic, obviously Crawford will be the one that's the slick boxer, while Errol Spence will be the one with the power. But generally, if you look at it from a statistical point of view, I actually think that Terrence Crawford, despite him being the boxer in this fight, despite him being the master boxer in this fight, he's not the one that's the one with the diminished power. He's the one that's got the most power. I think he punches way harder than Errol Spence does, despite the fact that he's also the boxer in this fight. So that's one of the reasons why I'm thinking of picking him, because of the fact that he's just too dynamic. Not only does he have punching power, he's also got the ability to box. Most fighters that have got punching power, they don't have the ability to box, or as slick as Crawford is. But Crawford is so well-rounded that not only does he have the slickness of a master boxer and the outboxing ability, he's also got more punching power than Errol Spence does. Now, Errol Spence, I'm not saying he doesn't punch hard. He does punch plenty hard, but he's not a concussive one-punch power guy the way Crawford is. Crawford, I think, is one of the most underrated punchers in boxing. Everyone mentions Inoue, everyone mentions Golovkin, everyone mentions, back in the day they used to mention Kovalev, everyone mentions Bertabiev, but rarely does a Crawford name ever get mentioned as a puncher. And that's a bit bizarre, because if you look at his last 11 fights, he's scored 10 consecutive knockouts, and he's knocked out very good opponents in Avanesyan, who he was his last opponent. So from that perspective, Crawford should be up in the list as a master puncher. He is a puncher. There's no denying it. Just looking at his KO percentage, he's got 30 KOs in 39 fights. That's a very decent percentage. So he's definitely a puncher, but for some reason he never gets mentioned. I think because he's such a slick operator, and he's one of the most slick boxers in the game, his boxing ability overshadows his punching ability, but he's also a very, very, very prolific puncher as well. And in this fight, I actually think Crawford is the bigger puncher in the fight. Now, don't get it twisted. Errol Spence's got power, but his power is he's more methodical, and he's more thudding. He's more of a guy that likes to pressure you and break you down than a guy that's got one punch concussive punching power the way Crawford does. So in a sense, Crawford is the puncher in this fight. He's definitely the puncher in the fight. He's not the guy that's that's just the slick boxer that doesn't have the power to actually hurt Errol Spence. I think the perception going into this fight is that Errol Spence can hurt Crawford, but Crawford doesn't have the power to hurt Spence. But Crawford's been buzzed a few times in fights. There's been, if you look online, you can find a video where it shows all the times that Crawford's been buzzed, and it's happened quite a few times. In fact, in his last fight against Ugas buzzed him and actually managed to slip his mouth guard out with a punch. So I think that puts it into perspective that if Crawford has got this much punching power, and obviously Errol Spence is I'm not saying he's got a bad defense, but he can be hit, and he has been hit in the past. I wouldn't be surprised if Crawford actually stops Errol Spence, like if he knocks him out. I mean, I think he can land a shot and actually put his lights out, because of the fact that he's quite hittable. He's in front of you and he's there, and on top of that, Crawford's got the power to stop you. If Crawford knocks out Errol Spence, I wouldn't be surprised. But that being said, I don't think the fight is going to go that way. But if it does go that way, I wouldn't be surprised. So tell me what you think below. Who is the bigger puncher in the fight between Errol Spence and Crawford? In my opinion, I think it's definitely Crawford. I think he's more prolific. I think in his fights, he's shown the ability to stop fighters with one punch. Like, Crawford is legit, and I think he's more well-rounded than Errol Spence is. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, hopefully they fight so we find out who's the best. But just from the outside looking in, I think Crawford is the more well-rounded fighter. He's more well-rounded than Errol Spence is. That's just my opinion. So tell me what you think below, and tell me who you think will win. Right now, I think I've got Crawford winning, and I would not be surprised if he stops him, because he's got the punching and power to do it, and he's got the KO power, and he's got the concussive power to actually knock him out, in my opinion. And obviously, I think Errol Spence is quite hittable. He doesn't have a bad defense, but he has been buzzed a few times in fights, and he does get hit when in between him throwing punches, there's an opportunity for him to get hit, because he leaves himself quite open to get hit. So yeah, tell me what you think below. Do you think Crawford is the puncher in the fight, or do you think Errol Spence is? Tell me what you think, and tell me who you think is going to win.